Hey guys, tonight we slip into the dusty, sun-baked world of ancient Mesopotamia, where time isn't just a number on your phone. It's a trickle of water in a clay pot. Picture yourself standing on a cracked mud brick street in UR 3000 BCE, the air thick with the scent of barley and sweat. Merchants shout, donkeys bray, and somewhere nearby, a water clock drips steadily, marking the hours in a way that feels oddly alive. You're about to dive into how these ancient folks measure time with nothing but water, gravity, and a whole lot of ingenuity. Fair warning, surviving a day here means keeping up with their schedules, and you'd probably be late for everything. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your city and what time it is where you are. I love picturing you all out there, cozying up for this. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing in the cradle of civilization, where the Tigris and Euphrates rivers hug the land like a pair of overprotective parents. Mesopotamia, roughly modern-day Iraq, is buzzing with firsts, writing, cities, laws, and, tonight's star, timekeeping. The water clock, or clepsydra if you want to sound fancy, is one of humanity's earliest stabs at wrestling time into something measurable. You're not checking your smartwatch here. Instead, you're squinting at a clay vessel with a tiny hole at the bottom, watching water drip out to mark the passage of hours. It's not exactly Swiss precision, but for a society that thinks wheels are high-tech, it's a big deal. Historians peg the earliest water clocks to around 3000 BCE, possibly in Sumer, where city-states like Ur and Uruk are figuring out how to organize people, trade, and worship without everyone just guessing what midday means. You wander toward a temple, its mud brick walls glowing under the relentless sun. The priests here are obsessed with time, not for catching a chariot on time, but for pleasing the gods. Their rituals, tied to lunar cycles and seasonal floods, demand precision. A water clock sits in the temple courtyard, a wide, shallow basin with markings scratched inside. Water trickles out, and when it hits a certain line, a priest knows it's time to chant or burn some incense. You can almost hear the drip, 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 like a heartbeat for the city. It's soothing, in a way, knowing time can be this tangible, this liquid. But here's a quirky tidbit. Some early clocks use beer instead of water, probably because Mesopotamians loved their brew so much they figured, why not? Imagine explaining to your boss you're late because the beer ran dry too fast. You pause by a stall selling clay pots, the vendor eyeing you like you're about to haggle. The water clock's simplicity is deceptive. A hole too big, and your hour is more like 20 minutes. Too small, and you're waiting forever. Craftsmen here are tinkering, experimenting with different sizes and shapes. Historians still argue whether these early clocks were more symbolic than practical. Did they really keep a whole city in sync, or were they mostly for show in temples? You can't help but smirk, thinking of your own struggles with setting an alarm. At least your phone doesn't leak. As you weave through the crowd, you notice how time shapes this place. Merchants need to know when to open their stalls, priests when to pray, and farmers when to flood their fields. The water clock isn't just a gadget. It's a lifeline for a society trying to outsmart chaos. You spot a kid refilling a clock with a jug, splashing water everywhere. Yep, even ancient tech had user error. It's oddly comforting, knowing humans have always been a little messy with their tools. You lean against a wall, the warm clay rough under your palms, and take it all in. The sun's climbing higher, and that steady drip is pulling you deeper into this world. You're starting to feel the rhythm of UR, where every drop counts. The water clock isn't just about time. It's about control, order, and maybe a touch of divine magic. You chuckle, imagining telling your friends you spent your evening obsessing over ancient plumbing. But there's something calming about it, like the sound of a fountain in a quiet garden. You're here, in this moment, and Mesopotamia is teaching you to slow down, to listen to the drip. The day's just beginning, and there's more to uncover in this city of firsts. You're weaving through the crowded markets of UR, the air thick with the scent of roasted barley and sun-warmed leather. It's 3000 BCE, and the sun's beating down, making the mud brick stalls feel like ovens. Your sandals slap against the dusty ground as you dodge a donkey loaded with reed baskets. Everywhere you look, merchants are haggling, their voices rising over the clatter of clay tablets and the bleating of goats. But what catches your eye is a water clock perched on a wooden stand near a spice vendor stall. It's a wide, unglazed clay basin, water glinting inside, dripping slowly through a tiny hole. This, you realize, is how these traders keep their chaotic day on track. It's not just a gadget. It's the pulse of commerce in one of Mesopotamia's busiest cities. The market's alive with purpose, and the water clock is its quiet conductor. Merchants rely on it to time their deals, ensuring they don't miss the morning rush or the late afternoon caravan departures. You pause by a stall piled with dried figs, watching a trader glance at the clock's water level before shouting out a price. It's a mainstream fact that these clocks, often called clepsydry, were essential for organizing trade in Sumerian cities like UR. By 2700 BCE, archaeological finds show standardized clay vessels with precise markings, proof that timekeeping was no afterthought. It was critical to keeping goods flowing from Babylon to the Persian Gulf. Without it, you'd have merchants arguing over whether noon was when the sun was highest or when their stomachs growled loudest. You smirk, imagining trying to explain your own schedule to these folks. Yeah, I've got a 2 p.m. Zoom call. Good luck with that. Here, time is tangible, measured in drips. You lean closer to the clock, noticing faint scratches inside the basin, marking intervals. The vendor catches you staring and grins, probably thinking you're impressed by his fancy setup. But here's a quirky tidbit. Some merchants added colored pebbles to the water, claiming it blessed the clock for accuracy. Superstition or style? You decide, but it's a charming touch, like decorating your phone with a custom case. You wander deeper into the market, brushing past a woman balancing a jug of sesame oil on her head. The water clock's influence is subtle, but everywhere. Stall owners use it to time their breaks, ensuring they're back before the next wave of buyers. You overhear two traders bickering. One claims the other's clock runs too fast, shortchanging his selling time. Historians still argue whether these early clocks were reliable enough for commerce or mostly a status symbol for wealthy merchants. The debate's murky, like the Tigris after a storm, but you can't help feeling the clocks gave UR's markets a sense of order, a way to tame the chaos of bartering for grain, wool, and lapis lazuli. As you navigate the maze of stalls, you spot a kid refilling a water clock, sloshing water over the rim. You chuckle. Some things never change, like spilling coffee on your keyboard during a deadline. The kid's boss, a burly man with a beard like a lion's mane, scolds him gently, then resets the clock with a practiced hand. It's a small moment, but it hits you. Timekeeping here isn't just practical. It's a ritual, a way to feel in sync with the city's rhythm. You pass a stall selling copper bangles, their glint catching the sun, and notice another clock nearby, its drip echoing like a metronome. It's soothing, almost hypnotic, pulling you deeper into UR's flow. You're starting to get why these clocks mattered. They're not just about knowing when to sell fish or trade for spices. They're about connection. Merchants, shoppers, even the goats seem to move to the same beat, guided by that steady drip, drip, drip. You pause by a stall offering warm flatbread, tearing off a piece as the vendor nods approvingly. The bread's chewy, the market's loud, and the water clock keeps ticking, tying it all together. You're not just a visitor here. You're part of the pulse, carried along by a system older than clocks with hands. It's oddly calming, like listening to rain on a quiet night. The market's still buzzing, and there's more to see in this city where time flows like water. You're crouched in a dusty workshop in UR, the air heavy with the earthy scent of wet clay. It's 3000 BCE, and you're surrounded by artisans shaping pots, their hands slick with mud, their chatter a low hum over the clink of tools. The sun slants through a reed awning, casting striped shadows across a half-finished water clock on a workbench. This isn't some high-tech lab. It's a gritty, hands-on space where Mesopotamia's timekeeping tech is born. You're about to roll up your sleeves and help craft one of these deceptively simple devices, feeling the weight of a civilization's obsession with taming time. The water clock in front of you is just a clay basin, wide and shallow, with a small hole poked near the bottom. You grab a lump of clay, cool and damp, and start shaping it under the watchful eye of a grizzled artisan. He shows you how to smooth the walls, ensuring the water will flow evenly. It's a mainstream fact that these early clocks, found in archaeological digs across Sumer, were made from local clay, fired in simple kilns to withstand constant water exposure. By 2800 BCE, craftsmen in cities like Uruk and Nippur standardized the design, a vessel with internal markings to track time as water drained. You press your thumb into the clay, mimicking the artisan's technique, and realize this is less about precision engineering and more about trial and error. You grin, thinking how your DIY projects at home, say assembling a bookshelf, feel just as fiddly. But here's a quirky tidbit. Some artisans swore by chanting to the clay while shaping it, believing it woke the vessel to measure time faithfully. You try not to laugh as your artisan mutters something to his pot, his face deadly serious. Is it superstition or just a way to pass the time? Either way, it's endearing, like naming your car to make it run better. You're crouched in a dusty workshop in UR, the air heavy with the earthy scent of wet clay. It's 3000 BCE, and you're surrounded by artisans shaping pots, their hands slick with mud, their chatter a low hum over the clink of tools. The sun slants through a reed awning, casting striped shadows across a half-finished water clock on a workbench. This isn't some high-tech lab. It's a gritty, hands-on space where Mesopotamia's timekeeping tech is born. You're about to roll up your sleeves and help craft one of these deceptively simple devices, feeling the weight of a civilization's obsession with taming time. The water clock in front of you is just a clay basin, wide and shallow, with a small hole poked near the bottom. You grab a lump of clay, cool and damp, and start shaping it under the watchful eye of a grizzled artisan. He shows you how to smooth the walls, ensuring the water will flow evenly. It's a mainstream fact that these early clocks, found in archaeological digs across Sumer, were made from local clay, fired in simple kilns to withstand constant water exposure. By 2800 BCE, craftsmen in cities like Uruk and Nippur standardized the design, a vessel with internal markings to track time as water drained. You press your thumb into the clay, mimicking the artisan's technique, and realize this is less about precision engineering and more about trial and error. You grin, thinking how your DIY projects at home, say assembling a bookshelf, feel just as fiddly. But here's a quirky tidbit. Some artisans swore by chanting to the clay while shaping it, believing it woke the vessel to measure time faithfully. You try not to laugh as your artisan mutters something to his pot, his face deadly serious. Is it superstition or just a way to pass the time? Either way, it's endearing, like naming your car to make it run better. You move to the next step, carving tiny lines inside the basin to mark time intervals. The artisan hands you a reed stylus, and you etch carefully, feeling the clay give under pressure. Each line represents a chunk of the day, roughly an hour, though Mesopotamians didn't think in our rigid 60-minute blocks. Their time was fluid, tied to tasks like prayer or market hours. You're sweating now, the clay sticking to your fingers, and you wonder how these folks managed without air conditioning. Historians still argue whether these markings were precise or more symbolic, meant to impress temple priests rather than clock watchers. Did they really care if the water clock was off by a few minutes? You're not sure, but as you carve, You feel the weight of creating something that holds time itself. The workshop buzzes around you. Another artisan tests a finished clock, pouring water from a jug and watching it drip. He nods, satisfied, as the water hits the first mark right on cue. You can't help but admire the simplicity. No gears, no batteries, just gravity and a hole. You fumble your stylus, dropping it into the clay, and the artisan chuckles, probably thinking you're hopeless. It's a humbling moment, like when you can't figure out your smart thermostat. You pick up the stylus, wipe it clean, and keep going, determined to get this right. As you finish your clock, the artisan fires it in a kiln, the heat shimmering in the air. You imagine it sitting in a temple or market, quietly dripping, guiding someone's day. The process is slow, deliberate, almost meditative, and you feel yourself sinking into the rhythm of this place. The drip of a nearby clock blends with the workshop's hum, like a lullaby for your tired mind. You're not just making a tool. You're crafting a piece of UR's heartbeat, a way to anchor chaos in a world without digital alerts. The clay's still warm in your hands, and there's more to learn as you step back into the city's flow. You're standing in the cool shadow of a towering mud brick temple in UR, the air tinged with the sweet smoke of burning myrrh. It's 3000 BCE, and the sun is dipping low, painting the ziggurat's steps golden. Around you, priests in linen robes move with purpose, their sandals whispering against the stone. At the center of the courtyard sits a water clock, its steady drip, drip, drip cutting through the hum of chants. You're here to join these priests, learning how they use this simple clay vessel to time their sacred rituals, tying human devotion to the rhythm of the gods. The clock's water glints in the fading light, and you feel the weight of a world where time isn't just measured, it's holy. The priests are meticulous, their eyes fixed on the clock as water trickles out, hitting carved marks inside the basin. You kneel beside one, an older man with a beard like tangled reeds, as he explains the schedule. A mainstream fact: Mesopotamian temples use water clocks to time prayers, offerings, and festivals, especially those tied to lunar cycles. By 2700 BCE, texts from UR describe priests tracking the moon's phases to honor gods like Nana, the moon deity. You watch the priest adjust the clock, adding water from a jug with a reverence that makes you pause. This isn't just about keeping time, it's about syncing with the cosmos, ensuring the gods aren't kept waiting. You can't help but smirk, thinking how you'd probably mess up the ritual by spilling the water. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some priests believe the water itself carried divine energy, blessed by the river gods. They'd sometimes add a pinch of barley to the clock, claiming it pleased the deities. You try not to roll your eyes. Imagine telling your boss your late report was because you didn't bless your laptop first. But as you watch the priest's careful movements, you get it. This is faith in action, every drip a prayer. You're handed a small clay tablet, etched with a schedule of offerings. The priest points to the clock, showing you when to light a bundle of herbs. You fumble the timing, lighting it too early, and the priests give you a look that says, "Tourist." Historians still argue whether water clocks in temples were practical tools or symbolic props. Did they really dictate every ritual, or were they more about impressing worshippers with divine order? You're not sure, but as the smoke curls upward, you feel the clock's rhythm pulling you into the ritual's flow, like a heartbeat you can't ignore. You're perched on a hill overlooking Babylon, 2800 BCE, the night sky sprawling above like a velvet tapestry studded with stars. The air is cool, carrying the faint tang of river mud and tamarisk trees. Below, the city hums softly, its mud brick walls glowing under torchlight. You're here with a group of Babylonian astronomers, their eyes fixed on the heavens, tracking constellations with a mix of awe and precision. At your side, a water clock drips steadily, its clay surface catching the starlight. You're about to see how these ancient stargazers used this simple device to connect their water clocks to the cosmic dance above, making time feel as vast as the sky itself. The astronomers, clad in wool robes, are hunched over clay tablets, scratching notes with reed styli. You squint at the sky, trying to spot what they're tracking, maybe the bright wanderer they call Ishtar, the planet Venus. A mainstream fact: Babylonian astronomers, among the first to systematize celestial observations, used water clocks to time the movement of stars and planets. By 2700 BCE, their records, etched on tablets found in modern Iraq, show they tracked lunar cycles and eclipses with startling accuracy. The water clock at your feet is their secret weapon, measuring intervals between a star's rise and set. You watch the water level drop, each drip marking a slice of a night, and feel a shiver, not from the cold, but from the idea that you're measuring the universe. You grin, thinking how your phone's stargazing app would probably crash out here. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some Babylonian astronomers believed the water in their clocks was touched by starlight, giving it a mystical power to align their observations with the god's will. One astronomer, his beard flecked with clay dust, pours water with a flourish, muttering a prayer to Nabu, the god of wisdom. It's charming, like blessing your Wi-Fi router for better signal. You're tempted to whisper, "Good luck with that," but you hold back, caught up in the moment. Night deepens, and the group shifts to watch another constellation. You notice the water clock's steady rhythm, its drip blending with the soft rustle of robes and the distant croak of frogs by the Euphrates. It's hypnotic, like a metronome for the stars. You recall that merchant's clock from UR's market. Same drip, different purpose. Here, it's not about trade, but about understanding the universe's pulse. You laugh quietly, imagining explaining this to your friends. "Yeah, I spent my night timing stars with a leaky pot." The astronomer next to you raises an eyebrow, and you realize you're starting to fit in, just a little. You lean back, the hill's grass prickling through your tunic, and let the sky pull you in. The water clock keeps dripping, tying your small moment to the vastness above. It's not just about stars. It's about feeling part of something eternal, something these Babylonians grasped thousands of years ago. The drip is your anchor, steady and unhurried, and you let it guide you deeper into the night's quiet rhythm, where time feels less like a line and more like a circle, spinning with the stars. You're climbing the steep, sun-warmed steps of a ziggurat in UR, 2800 BCE, your breath catching as you ascend. The air is dry, carrying the faint scent of baked earth and distant river reeds. Below, the city sprawls, a patchwork of mud brick homes glinting under the midday sun. At the ziggurat's summit, a platform opens up, offering a view that makes your heart skip. Endless plains, the Euphrates snaking through, and a water clock sitting solemnly in the center, its drip echoing like a pulse. You're here to measure time in this sacred space, where priests and scribes use the clock's steady flow to track divine moments with shadowy precision, tying earth to the heavens. The water clock up here is larger than the market ones, its clay surface smoothed to a sheen, marked with deep-etched lines. You kneel beside a priest, his linen robe fluttering in the breeze as he checks the water level. A mainstream fact: ziggurats, massive step temples, were Mesopotamia's spiritual hubs, and water clocks helped priests align rituals with celestial events. By 2700 BCE, texts from UR show these clocks timed solstices and equinoxes, ensuring offerings match the sun's arc. You watch the priest tilt his head, squinting at the ziggurat's shadow creeping across the platform, then at the clock's drip. It's not just timekeeping. It's a dance between sunlight and water, a way to honor the god's rhythm. You smirk, thinking how you'd probably trip on these steps and spill the sacred water. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some priests believe the ziggurat's shadow charged the clock's water with divine energy, making it more accurate. The priest beside you mutters something about the sun god Shamash, sprinkling a pinch of dust into the water as a blessing. It's endearing, like when you tap your lucky pen before a big meeting. You're tempted to ask if it works, but the priest's serious frown keeps you quiet. You're handed a clay tablet to record the shadow's position as the water hits a mark. Your fingers fumble with the stylus, scratching uneven lines, and the priest sighs, probably wondering why he stuck with you. Historians still argue whether ziggurat clocks were precise enough to track solar cycles, or if they were more symbolic, a way to show the gods' order to worshippers below. Do the priests really need every drip to align with the sun, or was it about the spectacle? You're not sure, but as you mark the tablet, you feel the weight of standing where time and faith collide. The breeze picks up, cooling the sweat on your neck, and you glance at the clock's steady drip. It's hypnotic, like the market clocks you saw in UR or that starry night in Babylon. Same drip, same rhythm, just a higher perch. You chuckle softly, imagining telling your friends you spent your day chasing shadows with a leaky pot. The priest shoots you a look, and you focus, try to match his precision. The shadow shifts, slow and deliberate, and you mark another line, feeling the ziggurat's quiet power. It's not just a temple. It's a place where time feels sacred, measured in drips and shadows. You step back, letting the priest take over, and gaze across the plains. The water clock keeps dripping, its sound blending with the wind's soft hum, pulling you into the moment. It's calming, like listening to a stream on a quiet hike. You're starting to get why these clocks mattered. Not just for rituals, but for grounding you in something bigger, something that links you to the sun, the gods, and the endless cycle of days. The ziggurat looms beneath you, and the drip carries you forward, deeper into UR's sacred heartbeat. You're hunched over a reed mat in a dimly lit room in UR, 2800 BCE, the air thick with a musty scent of clay tablets and sesame oil lamps. Scribes around you scratch away, their styli carving cuneiform into soft clay, the room buzzing with quiet focus. A water clock sits in the corner, its steady drip, 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 marking the rhythm of their work. You're here to track these scribes' daily grind, seeing how they lean on this simple clay vessel to structure their long hours of recording trade deals, laws, and temple inventories. The flickering lamplight and the clock's soft sound pull you into their world, where time is as tangible as the tablets piling up around you. The scribes are meticulous, their fingers stained with clay as they glance at the water clock to pace their tasks. A mainstream fact: in Mesopotamian cities like UR, scribes were the backbone of administration, and water clocks helped them manage workloads by 2700 BCE. Archaeological finds, like tablets from Nippur, show schedules for copying contracts or hymns, timed to the clock's drip to ensure nothing lagged behind. You watch a scribe, his brow furrowed, check the water level before starting a new tablet. He's racing to finish before the next mark, and you feel the pressure, like trying to hit a deadline before your coffee runs out. You grin, imagining explaining your own desk job to these guys. Good luck with spreadsheets and email fatigue. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some scribes believed the clock's water held the breath of Enki, the god of wisdom, and would dip their styli in it for inspiration. You catch one scribe doing just that, muttering a quick prayer as he wets his stylus. It's charming, like when you rearrange your desk for better vibes before a big project. You're tempted to try it, but you'd probably just smudge the clay. You're handed a blank tablet and a stylus, tasked with copying a grain inventory. The scribe next to you points to the clock, signaling when to start. Your cuneiform is wobbly, and the scribe smirks, probably thinking you're better suited to hauling barley than writing about it. Historians still argue whether water clocks truly drove scribes' productivity or were more about enforcing discipline. Did they really need such precision, or was it a way to keep everyone in line? You're not sure, but as you press the stylus into the clay, you feel the clock's drip setting the pace, like a metronome for your thoughts. The room grows stuffier, the lamps casting long shadows. You notice another scribe refilling the clock, careful not to spill, his movements almost reverent. It reminds you of that kid in UR's market, splashing water everywhere, same drip, different stakes. You chuckle softly, picturing telling your friend you spent your night scribbling in clay by lamplight. The scribe next to you raises an eyebrow, and you focus, trying to keep your wedges neat. The clock's rhythm is soothing, blending with the scratch of styli and the murmur of voices, pulling you deeper into the scribe's world. You finish your tablet, setting it aside to dry, and lean back, feeling the ache in your shoulders. The water clock keeps dripping, steady and unhurried, tying this small room to the larger pulse of UR. Merchants, priests, all moving to the same beat. It's not just about writing. It's about capturing time, making it permanent in clay. You're starting to get it. The drip isn't just a tool. It's a lifeline, grounding these scribes in a world of endless tasks. The lamplight flickers, and the clock carries you forward, deeper into the quiet rhythm of their day. You're standing in the grand courtyard of a palace in UR, 2800 BCE, the air heavy with the scent of cedarwood and sun-baked clay. Towering walls, inlaid with blue glazed tiles, shimmer in the heat, and guards in leather armor eye you warily. At the center, a water clock stands on a stone pedestal, its drip echoing through the bustle of courtiers and servants. You're here to witness how kings and their officials use this unassuming clay vessel to enforce time-keeping decrees, shaping the rhythm of a city-state's power. The clock's steady drip feels like the heartbeat of authority, and you're about to see how it rules over this gilded world. The king, draped in a fringed robe, sits on a throne carved with lions, his advisors hovering like anxious bees. A mainstream fact: Mesopotamian rulers, especially in Sumer, used water clocks to regulate palace activities by 2700 BCE, from court hearings to feasts. Cuneiform tablets from Uruk describe decrees setting exact times for tax collections or royal audiences, all timed by the clock's drip. You watch an official check the water level, announcing the start of a meeting with a nod. It's serious business. Miss the mark, and you're disrespecting the king, maybe even the gods. You feel the weight of it, like showing up late to a job interview with no excuse. You smirk, imagining trying to explain traffic to these folks. Good luck with that. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some palace clocks were decorated with tiny shells, believed to carry the sea god Ea's favor for precise timing. You spot one, its rim glittering with shells, and the official tending it whispers something, maybe a prayer for the king's schedule to stay on track. It's charming, like when you cross your fingers before a big presentation. You're tempted to whisper your own good luck charm, but the guard's stern looks keep you in line. You're ushered closer, handed a clay tablet listing the day's decrees. The official points to the clock, signaling when the king will hear a merchant's plea. You try to follow, but the cuneiform swims before your eyes, and you fumble the tablet, earning a scowl. Historians still argue whether these palace clocks were practical tools or symbols of royal control. Did they really keep the court on schedule, or were they more about showing who held time's reins? You're not sure, but as you stand there, the drip feels like a quiet command, ordering the chaos of power. The courtyard hums with activity, servants carrying wine jugs, advisors whispering urgently. You notice another official refilling the clock, his hands steady despite the pressure of the king's gaze. It reminds you of that scribe's room, the same drip tying tasks together, just with higher stakes. You chuckle softly, imagining telling your friends you spent your day watching a king time his decrees with a leaky pot. An advisor glances your way, and you straighten up, trying to look like you belong. The clock's rhythm is relentless, blending with the murmur of voices and the clink of gold jewelry, pulling you deeper into the palace's pulse. You step back, letting the scene unfold, the king's voice booming as he issues a decree. The water clock keeps dripping, steady and unyielding, a reminder that even kings bow to time's flow. It's calming in its own way, like the ticking of a clock on a quiet night, grounding this glittering world in something as simple as water. You're starting to feel the palace's rhythm, where every drip is a step in the dance of power, carrying you forward into UR's ordered chaos. You're trudging through a dusty field outside UR, 2800 BCE, the sun scorching your back as the Euphrates glitters in the distance. The air smells of damp earth and sprouting barley, and farmers in linen tunics move methodically, guiding water through narrow irrigation channels. Nearby, a water clock sits on a wooden stand, its steady drip marking the rhythm of their work. You're here to help these farmers time their irrigation cycles, using this simple clay vessel to decide when to flood their fields. The drip feels like the pulse of the land itself, tying human effort to the river's flow, and you're about to get your hands dirty in this ancient dance of survival. The farmers are focused, their eyes flicking between the clock and the channels snaking through the soil. A mainstream fact: Mesopotamian agriculture, the backbone of cities like UR, relied on water clocks by 2700 BCE to manage irrigation schedules. Cuneiform records from Nippur describe how farmers used these devices to time water releases from canals, ensuring crops like barley and dates got just enough without drowning. You kneel beside a farmer, his hands calloused from years of work, as he checks the clock's water level before opening a reed gate. The water surges, and you feel the ground soften under your feet, like stepping into a cool puddle after a long walk. You grin, thinking how you'd probably flood the whole field by accident. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some farmers believed the clock's water carried the river god Enki's blessing, so they'd sprinkle a bit on their fields for luck. You catch one farmer doing just that, flicking water with a reverent nod. It's endearing, like when you water your houseplants and whisper, "Don't die on me." You're tempted to try it, but the farmer's no-nonsense glare keeps you focused on the task. You're handed a wooden shovel to help dig a new channel, the clock dictating when to pause and let the water flow. Your arms ache, and your shovel work is sloppy, earning a chuckle from the farmer. Historians still argue whether water clocks were essential for irrigation or more of a ritualistic flourish. Did farmers really need such precision, or was it about syncing their work with divine order? You're not sure, but as you dig, the clock's drip feels like a guide, steadying your rhythm like a slow song on a long drive. The field hums with activity, farmers shouting instructions, water gurgling through channels. You notice another farmer refilling the clock, careful not to spill, his movements mirroring the priests and scribes you've seen. It's that same drip, tying markets, temples, and now fields together, like a thread weaving through UR's life. You laugh softly, imagining telling your friends you spend your day timing mud with a leaky pot. The farmer next to you raises an eyebrow, and you focus, trying to keep your channel straight. The clock's rhythm is soothing, blending with the splash of water and the rustle of barley, pulling you deeper into the field's quiet pulse. You step back, wiping sweat from your brow, and watch the water spread, turning dry earth into a patchwork of life. The water clock keeps dripping, steady and unhurried, a reminder that this land thrives on rhythm, not rush. It's calming, like the sound of rain on a tin roof, grounding you in the slow, deliberate work of feeding a city. You're starting to feel the field's heartbeat, where every drip is a step in the cycle of growth, carrying you forward into UR's fertile embrace. You're wandering the winding streets of Nippur, 2700 BCE, the air thick with the scent of drying fish and sun-warmed clay. The city hums with life. Artisans hammer copper, children dart through alleys, and a water clock sits proudly in a small plaza, its drip cutting through the noise like a steady heartbeat. You're here to discover how Mesopotamian craftsmen upgraded their water clocks, turning simple clay pots into more sophisticated tools for tracking time. The clock in front of you is sleeker than the ones you saw in UR's markets, its design hinting at a quiet revolution in timekeeping. You're about to dive into a world where innovation smells like clay and sounds like a drip. You approach a workshop where a craftsman, his hands dusted with clay, is shaping a new water clock. This one's taller, with a narrower neck and a spout carved with geometric patterns. A mainstream fact: by 2700 BCE, Mesopotamian cities like Nippur saw advances in water clock design, with archaeological finds showing vessels with internal baffles to control water flow more precisely. You watch the craftsman test the spout, adjusting its angle to slow the drip. It's not just a pot anymore. It's a tool for priests, merchants, and now even scholars, all trying to pin down time's slippery nature. You feel the weight of progress, like upgrading from flip phone to a smartphone. Except here, it's all clay and gravity. You smirk, thinking how you'd probably clog the spout with a clumsy pour. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some craftsmen believed the clay had to be sourced from sacred riverbanks to ensure the clock's accuracy, as if the Euphrates itself whispered time secrets. The craftsman mutters something about the river god Enki as he smooths the clay, and you can't help but find it charming, like when you name your Wi-Fi network for good luck. You're tempted to ask if he's serious, but his focused frown keeps you quiet. You're wandering the winding streets of Nippur, 2700 BCE, the air thick with the scent of drying fish and sun-warmed clay. The city hums with life. Artisans hammer copper, children dart through alleys, and a water clock sits proudly in a small plaza, its drip cutting through the noise like a steady heartbeat. You're here to discover how Mesopotamian craftsmen upgraded their water clocks, turning simple clay pots into more sophisticated tools for tracking time. The clock in front of you is sleeker than the ones you saw in UR's markets, its design hinting at a quiet revolution in timekeeping. You're about to dive into a world where innovation smells like clay and sounds like a drip. You approach a workshop where a craftsman, his hands dusted with clay, is shaping a new water clock. This one's taller, with a narrower neck and a spout carved with geometric patterns. A mainstream fact: by 2700 BCE, Mesopotamian cities like Nippur saw advances in water clock design, with archaeological finds showing vessels with internal baffles to control water flow more precisely. You watch the craftsman test the spout, adjusting its angle to slow the drip. It's not just a pot anymore. It's a tool for priests, merchants, and now even scholars, all trying to pin down time's slippery nature. You feel the weight of progress, like upgrading from flip phone to a smartphone. Except here, it's all clay and gravity. You smirk, thinking how you'd probably clog the spout with a clumsy pour. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some craftsmen believed the clay had to be sourced from sacred riverbanks to ensure the clock's accuracy, as if the Euphrates itself whispered time secrets. The craftsman mutters something about the river god Enki as he smooths the clay, and you can't help but find it charming, like when you name your Wi-Fi network for good luck. You're tempted to ask if he's serious, but his focused frown keeps you quiet. You're trudging along a dusty trade route outside UR, 2700 BCE, the sun blazing overhead as the scent of camel sweat and dried herbs fills the air. The horizon shimmers, and a caravan of merchants, their donkeys laden with wool and lapis lazuli, moves slowly ahead. Beside the path, a water clock sits under a reed awning, its steady drip marking the rhythm of departures and rests. You're here to time a caravan's journey, helping merchants use this clay vessel to coordinate their trek across Mesopotamia's vast plains. The drip feels like the pulse of commerce, tying this dusty trail to the bustling cities you've seen, and you're about to join the flow of trade. The merchants are restless, checking the clock as they load their goods. A mainstream fact: by 2700 BCE, Mesopotamian trade routes, stretching from Sumer to the Persian Gulf, relied on water clocks to schedule caravan movements. Cuneiform tablets from UR describe how merchants timed departures to avoid midday heat or bandits, using the clock's drip to stay on track. You watch a merchant, his beard flecked with dust, squint at the water level before shouting to his crew to move. It's high stakes. Miss the timing, and you're stuck in the desert with no water or shade. You feel the pressure, like rushing to catch a flight with a dying phone battery. You smirk, imagining explaining traffic jams to these traders. Good luck with that camel pileup. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some merchants believed the clock's water had to be poured at dawn to capture the day's luck, a ritual to ensure safe travels. You catch one merchant muttering a prayer to the trade god, Nan Shi, as he refills the clock, and it's endearing, like when you check your horoscope before a big day. You're tempted to join in, but his sharp glance keeps you focused on the task. You're handed a clay tablet to record the departure time, the stylus awkward in your hand. The merchant points to the clock, signaling when to mark the start. Your writing's messy, and he grumbles, probably thinking you're no help at all. Historians still argue whether water clocks were critical for trade logistics or more of a ritual to calm nervous merchants. Did they really need such precision, or was it about feeling in control on a risky route? You're not sure, but as you scribble, the drip feels like an anchor steadying the caravan's chaos like a GPS for the ancient world. The caravan starts moving, hooves kicking up dust as the clock's drip blends with the creak of carts. You recall the market clocks in UR, the ziggurat's drip, the scribe's rhythm, all that same sound, now guiding travelers. You chuckle softly, picturing telling your friend you spent your day timing donkeys with a leaky pot. The merchant shoots you a look, and you focus, trying to keep your tablet neat. The clock's rhythm is soothing, weaving through the shouts of traders and the braying of beasts, pulling you deeper into the road's pulse. You fall into step with the caravan, the water clock left behind, but its drip echoing in your mind. It's not just about timing a journey. It's about connecting cities, goods, and people across a vast land. The drip is calming, like the sound of a stream on a long hike, grounding you in the slow, steady march of trade. You're starting to feel the route's rhythm, where every drip is a step toward the next city, carrying you forward into Mesopotamia's sprawling web of commerce. You're weaving through a crowded neighborhood in UR, 2700 BCE, the air thick with the smell of baking flatbread and sun-dried reeds. Mud brick homes lean close, their walls warm from the afternoon sun, and kids chase each other through narrow alleys, laughing. A water clock sits in a small communal courtyard, its drip steady amid the chatter of daily life. You're here to see how ordinary Mesopotamians, potters, weavers, and families adopt the water clock's rhythm, weaving timekeeping into their everyday routines. The drip feels like a quiet guide, tying this humble corner of UR to the markets and temples you've seen, and you're about to step into the lives of the city's common folk. The courtyard is alive with activity. A woman kneads dough, a man repairs a sandal, and an old woman checks the clock before calling her family to eat. A mainstream fact, by 2700 BCE, water clocks weren't just for priests or merchants. Ordinary Sumerians in cities like UR used them to organize daily tasks, from cooking to communal gatherings. Cuneiform tablets from the aforementioned neighborhood clocks, shared by families to time chores or evening prayers. You watch a potter glance at the clock's water level, deciding it's time to fire his kiln. It's practical, grounding, like setting a timer for your laundry, except here, it's a shared rhythm for a whole community. You grin, thinking how you'd probably forget to check the clock and burn your bread. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some families believe the clock's water absorbed the spirit of the day, so they'd pour out carefully to avoid bad luck. You catch a woman tipping the last drops onto the ground with a whisper, like she's appeasing a household god. It's charming, like when you avoid stepping on cracks for no real reason. You're tempted to ask her about it, but her focused expression keeps you quiet, nodding along like you get it. You're handed a basket of dates to share, the woman pointing to the clock to time the meal's start. Your hands are clumsy, spilling a few, and a kid giggles, probably thinking you're hopeless. Historians still argue whether these communal clocks truly shaped daily life or were more about social status. Did families really need such timing, or was it a way to mimic the elite's habits? You're not sure, but as you pass out dates, the drip feels like a heartbeat, syncing the courtyard's bustle like a shared playlist at a family gathering. The scene shifts as evening creeps in, the air cooling, and the clock's drip blends with the clatter of clay bowls and soft chatter. You recall the merchant's clocks, the ziggurat's drip, the caravan's rhythm. That same sound, now tying neighbors together. You chuckle softly, imagining telling your friends you spent your day timing a potluck with a leaky pot. The woman glances over, and you smile, trying to look like you belong. The clock's rhythm is soothing, weaving through the laughter and the smell of warm bread, pulling you deeper into UR's communal pulse. You settle on a reed mat, munching a date, and watch the courtyard wind down. The water clock keeps dripping, steady and unhurried, a reminder that time here isn't just personal. It's shared, connecting neighbors in a dance of small moments. It's calming, like the hum of a fan on a quiet night, grounding you in the slow, warm rhythm of community. You're starting to feel UR's heartbeat, where every drip is a step in the daily flow, carrying you forward into the lives of its people. You're lingering in the cool shade of a temple courtyard in UR, 2700 BCE, the air heavy with the scent of burning incense and damp clay. Priests in flowing linen robes move quietly, their murmurs blending with the faint trickle of a water clock at the courtyard's heart. This clock, larger and more ornate than the ones in the markets or fields, sits on a stone pedestal, its drip echoing with an almost sacred weight. You're here to overhear a heated debate among priests about the accuracy of their water clocks, a clash of faith and precision that shapes how this temple measures time. The drip feels like a quiet referee, steady amid the tension, pulling you deeper into UR's spiritual pulse. The priests are gathered in a tight circle, gesturing at the clock as their voices rise. A mainstream fact, by 2700 BCE, Mesopotamian temples, especially in UR, relied on water clocks for precise ritual timing, with cuneiform records detailing disputes over their accuracy. These clocks dictated when to offer sacrifices or chant hymns, and any error could anger the gods. You watch a young priest, his face flushed, argue that the clock runs too fast, throwing off their lunar prayers. An older priest, his beard streaked with gray, counters that the water's flow is divine, not to be questioned. You feel the stakes like when your phone's clock drifts and you miss a meeting. Except here, it's about cosmic harmony. You smirk, imagining trying to explain daylight savings to these guys. Good luck with that divine argument. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some priests believed a clock's inaccuracy was a sign of godly displeasure, so they'd purify the water with a sprig of tamarisk to fix it. You catch one priest doing just that, dipping a branch into the clock with a solemn nod, and it's endearing, like when you restart your router to appease the tech gods. You're tempted to whisper, try recalibrating, but their intense glares keep you silent, just observing. You're handed a clay tablet to record the debate's points, the stylus slippery in your sweaty hands. The young priest points to the clock, insisting the hole's too wide, letting water escape too quickly. Your notes are shaky, and the older priest sighs, probably thinking you're useless. Historians still argue whether these temple disputes were about practical fixes or theological power plays. Did priests really care about a few minutes' error, or was it about who controlled the god's schedule? You're not sure, but as you scribble, the drip feels like a neutral voice, steady despite the argument, like a friend staying calm in a heated group chat. The courtyard grows quieter as the debate winds down, the priest stepping back to check the clock. You notice another priest refilling it, careful not to disturb the water's flow, his movements echoing the care you saw in the fields and workshops. It's that same drip, markets, ziggurats, now temples, tying UR together. You chuckle softly, imagining telling your friends you spent your day eavesdropping on a priestly clock fight. The young priest glances over, and you focus, try to keep your tablet neat. The clock's rhythm is soothing, blending with the rustle of robes and the faint hum of chants, pulling you deeper into the temple's tense pulse. You lean against a wall, the cool mud brick grounding you, and watch the priest disperse, still muttering. The water clock keeps dripping, steady and unyielding, a reminder that time here isn't just measured. It's sacred, debated, and revered. It's calming, like the sound of a stream on a quiet evening, anchoring this spiritual storm. You're starting to feel the temple's rhythm, where every drip is a step in the dance of faith and precision, carrying you forward into UR's sacred debates. You're standing on a bustling trade road just beyond UR's walls, 2700 BCE, the air thick with dust and the sharp tang of camel dung. The Euphrates glints in the distance, and merchants from far-off lands, Egyptians with linen kilts, Persians with braided beards, haggle over goods under makeshift awnings. A water clock sits nearby, its steady drip cutting through the clamor of bartering and donkey brays. You're here to trace how Mesopotamia's water clocks spread to neighboring lands, influencing timekeeping beyond UR's borders. The drip feels like a thread, weaving this dusty outpost into a wider world, and you're about to follow its trail across ancient cultures. The merchants are busy, their eyes flicking to the clock as they time their deals. A mainstream fact, by 2700 BCE, Mesopotamia's water clock technology had spread along trade routes to Egypt and Persia, with archaeological evidence like Egyptian clay vessel from 2600 BCE showing similar designs. You watch a Persian trader, his robes heavy with embroidery, check the clock before sealing a deal for lapis lazuli. He nods to an Egyptian merchant, who carries a similar clay pot, its markings eerily like yours. It's not just trade goods moving. It's ideas like how your phone's text spread from one country to another, only slower and muddier. You smirk, imagining explaining globalization to these traders. Good luck with that camel caravan Wi-Fi. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some Egyptian traders believed their clocks worked better if filled with Nile water, claiming it flowed truer than foreign rivers. You catch one pouring water with a dramatic flourish, muttering about the god Happy's blessing. It's charming, like when you insist on using your lucky mug for coffee. You're tempted to ask if he's tried Euphrates water, but his focused frown keeps you quiet, just watching the exchange. You're handed a clay tablet to record the trade, the stylus awkward as you note the clock's roll. The Persian trader points to it, explaining how it matches the ones back in Susa. You're writing sloppy, and he grumbles, probably thinking you know scribe. Historians still argue whether water clocks spread through trade or independent invention. Did Egypt and Persia copy Mesopotamia, or did they tweak their own versions? You're not sure, but as you scribble, the drip feels like a universal language, linking these traders to UR's markets, temples, and fields like a shared app across ancient apps. The road hums with life, camels snorting, merchants shouting in different tongues. You notice another trader refilling his clock, careful not to spill, his actions echoing the priests and farmers you've seen. It's that same drip, now crossing borders, tying distant lands to UR's rhythm. You chuckle softly, imagining telling your friend you spent your day tracking leaky pots across the ancient world. The Egyptian trader glances over, and you focus, trying to keep your tablet neat. The clock's rhythm is soothing, blending with the clatter of goods and the murmur of voices, pulling you deeper into this global pulse. You step back, watching the caravan prepare to move, the clock marking the moment. The water clock keeps dripping, steady and unhurried, a reminder that time here isn't just local. It's a shared idea, flowing like the rivers that connect these lands. It's calming, like the sound of waves on a distant shore, grounding you in the slow, sprawling web of ancient trade. You're starting to feel the world's rhythm, where every drip is a step in a larger story, carrying you forward into the legacy of Mesopotamia's timekeeping. You're sitting on a low hill outside 2700 BCE, the night sky stretching above like a dark canvas pierced with stars. The air is cool, carrying the faint scent of river reeds and smoldering campfires. Below, the city's mud brick walls glow faintly under moonlight, and a water clock rests beside you, its soft drip blending with the chirp of crickets. You're here to reflect on how Mesopotamia's water clocks shaped a civilization and left a legacy that echoes beyond its rivers. The drip feels like a final note, a gentle farewell to the bustling markets, temples, and trade routes you've wandered, and you're ready to let this ancient rhythm lull you into a quiet close. The clock beside you is simple, its clay worn smooth by years of use, yet it carries the weight of centuries. A mainstream fact: Mesopotamian water clocks, starting around 3000 BCE, were a cornerstone of Sumerian society, influencing everything from trade to worship, with their designs spreading to Egypt, Persia, and even early Greece. You trace the clock's rim, feeling the etched marks that guided priests, merchants, and farmers. It's humbling, like holding an ancient smartphone that powered a civilization. The drip marks time's passage, not just for you are, but for a world learning to measure the unmeasurable, a legacy that still shapes how you think about hours and minutes. You smirk, imagining trying to explain your smartwatch to these folks. Good luck with that touchscreen pitch. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some Mesopotamians believed the clock's final drops held the day's memory, so they'd pour them into the earth as an offering. You watch the last drops fall, glistening in the starlight, and it's charming, like when you save a sentimental ticket stub. You're tempted to pour some yourself, but the quiet night keeps you still, just listening to the drip's fading rhythm. You lean back, the grass cool against your palms, and think about the journey. UR's markets, the ziggurat's shadows, the caravan's dust. Historians still argue whether water clocks were the spark of scientific timekeeping or just practical tools that got lucky. Did they truly change how humans saw time, or were they a stepping stone to later clocks? You're not sure, but the drip feels eternal, linking you to every person who watched it, from scribes to traders. It's not just a sound. It's a thread weaving through the lives you've glimpsed, tying them to your own fleeting moment under these stars. The night grows stiller, the city's hum fading to a whisper. You recall that merchant's clock, the priest's debates, the farmer's fields, all that same drip, now softening as the clock empties. You chuckle softly, imagining telling your friends you ended your day stargazing with a leaky pot. The stars twinkle, indifferent, and the drip slows, pulling you deeper into the night's calm embrace. As the water clock's final drops fall, the world feels softer, quieter, like a blanket settling over your shoulders. You're no longer in UR's bustling streets or atop its ziggurat. You're here, on this hill, the stars your only company. The drip fades, each sound longer, gentler, like a lullaby sung by the earth itself. You don't need to count hours anymore. The night is timeless, wrapping you in its cool, starry embrace. Let the worries of your day slip away like water through that ancient clay. The rivers still flow, the stars still shine, and you're part of their rhythm, drifting into a peaceful haze. Close your eyes, breathe slow, and let the quiet carry you to sleep, cradled by the same timekeeping that soothed a civilization long ago.